Hannah knew that keeping the blue ribbon was a dangerous thing. It was just a scrap of fabric, hidden deep inside the pages of her grandmother's German Bible. But it held a memory that made her heart race faster than a runaway buggy. Every time she touched it, she felt the warmth of Isaac's hand from that day by the creek. But Isaac was the one man her father, the bishop, had forbidden her to speak to. As the lantern light flickered against the wooden walls, Hannah heard the heavy footsteps of her dead approaching the parlor. If he found the ribbon, the silence of their home would be shattered forever. The fog sat heavy on the rolling hills of Holmes County that morning. It was a thick, gray blanket that clung to the valleys and turned the world soft and quiet. Hannah Yoder adjusted her white cap, tucking a stray strand of brown hair beneath the fabric. The air smelled of damp earth and wood smoke, the perfume of autumn in Ohio. She stood on the front porch of the farmhouse, watching the sun try to break through the mist. It was Tuesday, market day, and the work had started hours ago. Her fingers were stained with blackberry juice from the canning. Even now, with the jars cooling on the counter, her hands could not stay idle. "Hannah!" A deep voice rumbled from the barn. It was her dead Bishop Amos. His voice was like the oak trees that lined their driveways, unbending and coming. "Dead," she called back softly. She smoothed her apron and stepped off the porch, her black boots crunching on the gravel. Inside the barn, the air was warm and smelled of sweet hay and livestock. The horses were restless, shifting their weight in the stalls, sensing the change in the weather. But Hannah's eyes didn't go to the horses. They went to the young man pitching hay in the far corner. It was Isaac Miller. Isaac was not like the other boys in the district. He worked harder than anyone, his shirt soaked through with sweat even in the chill of the morning. But Isaac carried a shadow. His father had left the church 10 years ago, running off to the city and leaving his family in debt and shame. In the eyes of the community, Isaac was a good worker, but he was marked by his father's sin. He was seen as a risk, a wild branch that might snap. Hannah knew better. She had seen the way he treated the animals, with a gentleness that contradicted his strong, calloused hands. He looked up as she entered, leaning on his pitchfork. His eyes were a startling shade of blue, bright against the shadows of the barn. "Morning, Hannah," he said. His voice was low, barely a whisper, meant only for her. It wasn't proper for them to speak alone. "Morning, Isaac," she replied, keeping her gaze lowered, though her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. "The bishop wants the buggy ready," Isaac said, wiping his brow. "He's taking the scenic route to the auction today." "I brought you some water," Hannah said, quickly pulling a mason jar from her apron pocket. She hadn't brought it for her father. Isaac stepped forward, his boots silent in the straw. Their fingers brushed as he took the jar. The touch was electric, a spark that terrified and thrilled her. Weeks turned into a month, and the harvest season arrived in full force. The corn stood tall and golden, waiting for the reapers. The days were long, filled with the rhythmic sound of chopping and the creak of wagons loaded heavy with the bounty of the earth. For Hannah, the harvest was a time of joy, but also a time of hiding. Every spare moment was a calculated risk. On Thursdays, she would walk to the creek to wash the heavy wool blankets. It was hard work, her hands turning red in the cold water. But Isaac was repairing the fence line near the creek. He had volunteered for the job, claiming the posts were rotting and needed fresh cedar. Hannah knew the truth. The fence was fine. He was there to be near her, separated only by the rushing water and 20 feet of tall grass. "The water looks cold today," Isaac called out, hammering a nail with unnecessary force. He didn't look at her, keeping his eyes on the wood. Hannah scrubbed a blanket, a smile touching her lips. "It keeps the spirit awake." "Isaac, hard work is good for the soul." "My soul feels awake enough," he muttered, finally glancing over. "I spoke to the elders last night about my baptism." Hannah stopped scrubbing. The water dripped from the wall, creating ripples in the stream. This was what they had been waiting for. If Isaac was baptized, if he fully joined the church, he could court her. He would be a man of standing, not just the son of a runaway. "And?" Hannah asked, her breath catching in the cold air. "What did they say?" Isaac put down his hammer. He looked at the horizon, where the sun was dipping below the tree line. They said, "I have much to prove. Your D.A. Ed, ... Bishop Amos, ... He thinks I have too much of the world in me. He thinks I'm waiting for my chance to run. Like my father." Hannah's heart sank. Her father was a righteous man, but he was stubborn. Once he made up his mind, moving him was like trying to push a mountain. "You are not your father," Hannah said firmly. She waded a step closer to the bank. "You are Isaac. You belong here." Isaac looked at her then, with a longing so deep it made her knees weak. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, blue ribbon. "I found this at the market," he said. "It's not plain. It's too bright, but it matches the sky on the day we first spoke." He tossed it gently across the creek. It fluttered in the wind and landed on a flat stone near her feet. "Keep it," he whispered, "until I can buy you something real. Until I can buy you a home." Hannah snatched the ribbon up and hid it in her dress. It was a forbidden token, a secret promise that bound them together more than any written law. Winter came early that year. The snow fell thick and fast, burying the farm in silence. The buggies left deep tracks in the white powder. Life moved indoors. The men repaired harnesses in the workshop, and the women quilted by the light of kerosene lamps. Hannah sat in the parlor, her needle moving rhythmically through the fabric. They were making a wedding ring pattern quilt for her cousin. Her mother, Sarah, sat opposite her, reading the scripture aloud. The fire crackled in the stove, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. "Hannah," her mother said softly, closing the book, "your father has been speaking with the Millers, not Isaac's family." "The Millers from over in Indiana." Hannah pricked her finger. A tiny drop of blood bloomed on the white fabric. She quickly put it in her mouth to stop the stain. "Indiana?" Hannah asked, her voice trembling. "That is a long way off, Mangim." "Levi Miller is a widower," Sarah continued, her eyes sad but resigned. "He has a good farm. He needs a mother for his 2 children. He is a good man, Hannah, and your father thinks it is time. You are 20 now. It is time to settle." Hannah felt the room spin. Levi Miller was 40 years old. He was a stranger, and moving to Indiana meant never seeing Isaac again. Later that night, unable to sleep, Hannah crept downstairs. She needed to see the ribbon. She needed to remember the promise. She opened the heavy family Bible on the side table, where she had pressed the ribbon between the pages of the Psalms, but the ribbon was gone. Her heart stopped. She flipped through the pages frantically. Genesis, Exodus, Psalms, ... Nothing. Just the thin, crinkled paper. "Are you looking for this?" The voice came from the doorway. Hannah spun around. Bishop Amos stood there, holding the kerosene lamp. In his other hand, the blue ribbon. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, which was far worse. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. "I found it this morning," he said heavily. "I saw Isaac throw it to you by the creek. I was watching from the ridge." "Dead, please," Hannah whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "He is a good man. He wants to join the church. He loves God. He is unsettled," Hannah Amos said, walking to the wood stove. He opened the iron door. The fire roared inside, hungry and hot. "He has a restless heart, and you... ... He looked at the ribbon. "You are hiding things. Deceit is the first step away from the path." "No!" Hannah cried out. But it was too late. Amos dropped the blue ribbon into the fire. It curled, blackened, and vanished. In a second, the next Sunday, the community gathered for the preaching service at the Stoltzfus farm. The wooden benches were hard, and the sermon lasted for 3 hours. Hannah sat on the women's side, her head bowed. She could feel Isaac's presence across the room on the men's side, but she dared not look up. After the service, during the common meal, the news spread in whispers. It moved through the crowd like a cold wind. Isaac was leaving. He hadn't shown up for the milking that morning. His room was empty. His bag was gone. Hannah felt the blood drain from her face. She dropped her plate. the ceramic shattering on the wooden floor. The room went silent. She didn't care about the stairs. She ran. She ran out of the barn, past the buggies, and down the lane toward the main road. Her bonnet fell back, hanging by its strings. Her breath came in ragged gasps. He wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. Wouldn't. She reached the old covered bridge, the boundary of their district, and there he was, sitting on a fence post, waiting for the English bus that ran to the city. "Isaac!" she screamed. He turned. His face was pale, his eyes real. He wasn't wearing his broad-full trousers. He was wearing jeans and a denim jacket. He looked like a stranger. Hannah stopped 10 feet away, her chest heaving. "You're going just like that." "Your father came to me," Isaac said, his voice broken. "He told me about the marriage to Levy in Indiana. He told me I was holding you back. He said if I really loved you, I wouldn't make you choose between your family and me. He said I would always be an outsider." Isaac hopped off the fence. The bus was coming. She could hear the rumble of the engine in the distance. "I can't ask you to leave, Hannah. I won't do that to you. You love this life. You love your family." "I love you," Hannah cried, stepping forward. She grabbed his hands. They felt different in the denim jacket, but they were still Isaac's hands. "Then come with me," Isaac said, a desperate hope in his eyes. "Right now, get on the bus. We can go to the city. We can be free." Hannah looked at the bus rounding the corner. Then she looked back up the hill, toward the farmhouse, the barn, the life she had known for 20 years. She thought of her mother alone in the kitchen. She thought of the hymns they sang. She thought of the peace of a Sunday evening without electricity or noise. To leave meant she would be shunned. She would never sit at her family's table again. She would be dead to them. The bus hissed to a halt. The door opened with a screech. The driver looked at them impatiently. Isaac squeezed her hands one last time. "Hannah." Hannah closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks, freezing in the cold air. She pulled her hands away slowly. "I can't," she whispered. The words were like shards of glass in her throat. "I can't leave them," I said. "I can't leave." God. Isaac nodded slowly, understood. He had always known, deep down, that her roots were too deep to pull up. He leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. It was a chaste kiss, a goodbye kiss. "Be happy, Hannah. Be happy." He stepped onto the bus. The doors closed. As the heavy vehicle pulled away, spewing exhaust into the crisp air, Hannah stood alone on the road. She watched until the bus was nothing but a speck in the distance. Her heart felt hollowed out, empty and aching. She turned around and began the long walk back up the hill. She put her bonnet back on and tied the strings. When she walked into the kitchen, her mother was washing dishes. Her father was sitting at the table, his head in his hands. Amos looked up. He saw the grief in his daughter's eyes, a grief so profound it aged her 10 years in a single hour. He stood up and walked to her. For the first time in her life, the stern bishop pulled his daughter into a hug. He wept with her. 5 years had passed. The seasons had turned over and over, healing the land, if not the heart. Hannah sat on the porch of a farmhouse in Indiana. She was rocking a cradle with her foot. Inside slept a baby boy. She was not married to Levi Miller. Levi had passed away from a sickness 2 years after she arrived, leaving her to care for his children. But they had never married. She had stayed to help the family, finding purpose in service, finding peace in the quiet duties of the day. A black buggy pulled up the long driveway. Hannah shaded her eyes against the sun. It was a courier from Ohio. The man walked up the steps and handed her a letter. "This was sent to the bishop in Holmes County," he said. "He asked me to bring it to you." Hannah opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph, something forbidden, but she looked anyway. It was a picture of a man standing in front of a small carpentry shop. He looked older, tired, but he was smiling. Isaac. And wrapped inside the paper was a piece of fabric. It wasn't a blue ribbon this time. It was a square of a quilt. It was the wedding ring pattern. The note was short. "I found my way back. Not to the district, but to the faith. I build furniture now, plain, simple, wood. I think of you every time I send the grain." Hannah smiled, a genuine, warm smile. She traced the pattern on the fabric. She wasn't with him. They lived in different worlds now, but they were both under the same sky, both walking their paths with integrity. She looked out at the cornfield swaying in the wind. The pain was gone, replaced by a quiet gratitude. She had chosen her faith, and he had found his, and in the silence of the afternoon, that was enough.